to make a video blog, let alone turned on this light, and there it all is. But you might wonder, if you clicked on and got this far, why I used a photograph of a guy talking to a robot at a table to make a video on early Christmas morning at 3 in the morning about robots, living conditions for women, and in America, and related matters. And let me explain. With all this with respect to CES 2026 Las Vegas. And the reason is that, first of all, I've received a large amount, I mean a gigantic amount, of press releases related to artificial intelligence and robotics. Now, I'm not complaining. That's something that I've received in greater number each year, starting about, I would say, 8 years ago. Prior to that, it was a trickle, you know? And when I started covering CES Las Vegas in 2010, yeah, that back that far, nothing. Uh, CES has expanded with how technology related to the integrated circuit has expanded, has grown. And now we're at the place where I thought we would be 6 years ago, when I saw the stamping device rapidly stamping. And as I was vlogging, and I imagined that that stamping device was shaped like, was a man, shaped like a human, but doing the same stamping, because that machine had arms. And so it's very easy to translate the image I was looking at to that of a robot, right? And now we're here. We're at that place. Uh, Pretty much right on schedule where I thought we would be. But what I get increasingly, and this is really just came into my mind, is image after image after image after video 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 and after video of robots interacting with men. Men. Yeah. It doesn't matter if the robot is fighting the man, like kicking the man, as was the case in China, or the robot following the moves and gestures of a man, or a man talking about a robot. It just popped into my mind this morning after listening to Christmas Mass, that, and some comments that the Pope made regarding the need for man to, as man tries, as other men really, try to follow or be God, for man to realize that you follow God and not man. Words to that effect. It was a very profound set of statements that they were a direct rebuke to where we are with respect to President Trump's behavior in America. But I was thinking about that in the context of robotics, and how we just seem to have forgotten women all of a sudden. So I thought, you know what, let me check something. Let me check and see what the mortality rates for women are. And what the Google AI explained, because it's a great way of aggregating information and data on a subject, was that for women under the age of 40, the death rate was actually lower than it was in 2022. But for women over 40, it was actually unchanged or a little bit greater. And for Black women, it remained unchanged. It was still high. And I thought about all of that, and then I thought about the declining birth rate in America, and then I thought about how we don't seem to, no, we don't, not don't seem to, we don't seem to emphasize the the traditional marriage. Now, this is not a speech that's uh, anti homosexual. All right, that's not my intent, but it is a speech that, or a train of thoughts that point to the question of why aren't we paying attention to the need to take our women and make absolutely certain that we are biologically able to advance the human race in America. And to advance the human race, you have to make sure that people are able to give birth, that they're able to be uh, of means to take care of kids. That means housing, that means food, that means clothing, that means a shelter within the housing that's capable of warming bodies and cooling them when necessary. That means water to both cleanse and to nourish. All of that put together. And yet, we're allowing homeless populations to grow, and we are paying lip service to it. And even elected officials in my party, the Democratic Party, who say they want affordable housing, only pay attention to establishing relations with developers, but they don't pay attention to making sure that people have enough money in their pockets to afford rents and mortgages. And so, in the case of California, which had redevelopment law and used something called tax increment financing to allow the ability to give money to landlords to lower rents by either paying for insurance costs or paying for code enforcement costs or paying for other parts of the business of running a dwelling. Instead of doing that, first Jerry Brown killed redevelopment, something not widely known in the United States, killed redevelopment in 2011 under the idea, his stated idea, that it would allow the reduction of a gigantic multi-billion dollar deficit. But the California Redevelopment Agency Association told the governor via studies and commentary that indeed getting rid of redevelopment would not at all reduce the budget deficit. And long story short, Governor Brown discovered that even after killing redevelopment, that he really didn't need to kill redevelopment to get rid of the deficit, but he did it anyway. So we all went away with this idea that, okay, great Jerry, great magnanimous Jerry, really was trying to help everybody and get rid of this budget albatross of debt, right? This deficit, excuse me, not debt, but deficit. And we, everyone went on their merry way. Jerry Brown served out again two terms of governor for the second time. He was a governor in '78, 2 terms then, and then um, he he served out in 2000. Actually, wait a minute, let me take that back, because yeah, he served out 2 terms in '78, and then he ran for governor again in 2014 and won. He was attorney general in 2010, and no, and then he ran for governor in 2012. I'm sorry, in 2012. But at any rate, he was able to serve as California governor twice. But the second time that he did so, after being mayor of Oakland and benefiting from redevelopment. The second time, Jerry killed it. He killed it with that idea of, well, I'm going to kill it because I want to save the California budget. I want to reduce and get rid of the deficit problem. That was his idea. Then in 2020, in the process of making a multi-part series with a journalist from KQED about his life, and from a political perspective, Jerry Brown let it slip that he didn't want redevelopment revenue to finance affordable housing in his elegant density city of Oakland. That's what he said. And he also said that he didn't favor it for California as a whole. And I really zeroed in on that. I made a video about it because I was angry that the governor, now former governor, was actually taking us for a ride regarding redevelopment law. He had no intention of saving redevelopment law. He wanted to get rid of redevelopment law for philosophical reasons. It had nothing to do with the structural deficit at all. He wanted to get rid of it for philosophical reasons. He didn't believe in giving money to developers to lower the per unit cost of housing to make them more affordable, which is what affordable housing is, and which is what you do to make it affordable is you give the developers a subsidy to cover costs. You don't say to them, hey, make a cheaper building because you'll get a cheaper building. That, among other things, may cut corners and be not so safe. You don't want that. So you give them enough money to build a high quality building, but also to have a segment of units, a significant set of units, preferably half of them or more, given the times, able to be affordable to the majority of the population. That's the idea. But Jerry Brown in 2020, as part of this KQED segment that he was creating, poo-pooed affordable housing, subsidized housing, okay? And that really made me think about where we were actually headed as a society and who we trusted under the idea that they would deliver government that fulfilled the promise of mitigating market forces that would cause homelessness. Jerry Brown sent the signal that he wasn't interested in that. That's what he did. That's what he did. And so I coupled that with this emergence of robotics, this emergence of artificial intelligence, where sure, I can say to Google, hey Google, what time is it? Hey Google, what time is it?
2:56 a.m.
Right? Or I could ask it more complex questions, but will it give me, but what's it replacing? My mom heard Google at work answering a question, and also something else, Gronk. On Twitter, I was reading off an answer that Gronk produced, and she said, what jobs are these taking away? And it's a good question. It's a good question. Right now, the answer is there's nobody, or there hasn't been this hotline. There used to be these hotlines you could call, right? But there's not a hotline where you can call and say, okay, what's the answer to this question or that question or anything else, right? But it does beg the question, hey, look, when you have that out there, what jobs are being taken away from it? The other question is what jobs are being created. Now, that end of the spectrum has the answer of, well, people who develop apps and platforms that work with Google Home and other artificial intelligence devices that provide these answers, these exchanges. Chat GPT and so on, do open up markets for other types of startups to be formed around devices that work with these systems in different ways, many different ways, right? Okay, fine. But the jobs created, those jobs that are created, as well as who's creating the companies, they tend to be primarily male. And the question is, and also primarily white male. And the question is, how do we change that? My answer is you change that through subsidy. Subsidies for companies that are primarily minority and primarily women. You change that by making absolutely certain that they have contracts with cities to develop technologies. You change that by getting them in the arenas of society so that they can meet other people who may not look like them, but are spearheading the development of these technologies and these companies and have enough money to where perhaps they would want to invest in what these minority and women entrepreneurs are creating. That's how you do it. And so, on top of all that, you maintain the social safety net. That's why Obamacare was so great. Obamacare is very beneficial to my business because, in the California context, Obamacare allowed me to write off what I was paying in rent in Oakland, and because that's where I was doing my work. Think about the number of people who are doing remote work who could also have that advantage. But now you have Republicans that want to get rid of Obamacare, not because Obamacare is really of a cost. Republicans have tried to dismantle Obamacare by taking away this subsidy provision or this other part of it to actually weaken it and make it less desirable rather than leaving it in its original state. All right? Why? Because Barack Obama succeeded in doing something that no one thought was possible, actually passing a healthcare initiative that focused on lower healthcare costs. And that's exactly what Obamacare does. And it really did widen the availability of healthcare to more people to the tune of over 25 million. That is a substantial difference. And it continues to be a bellwether set of legislation that really should be the hallmark that Democrats fight to maintain and fight to elevate. And by and large, we do, even with Trump in charge. But it also signals the stark difference between from in the area of healthcare, Republicans and Democrats. And it makes Republicans look like they don't care about advancing society from the standpoint of the social safety net. That's not true for every Republican. There are Republicans who are classically conservative. And what I mean by that is this: classically conservative Republicans care about the maintenance of government actions and operations, but they don't favor excessive spending. And that's with an asterisk. What is excessive spending, right? Okay? What is excessive spending? What is excessive spending? Now we have Republicans who, and this has emerged over the past 15, well, I would say the past 21 years, but this new kind of conservative that calls themselves Republican says that you're conservative based on divisive issues. For example, abortion or race. I don't see that as a conservative or liberal issue. I know that what I'm saying is outside the norm, but hear me out. hear me out. I'm an institutionalist. And I look at the importance of maintaining America's institutions, government institutions first, as described in the Constitution. I mean, it should come as no surprise that there are people calling for constitutional conventions because they don't like the fact that the Constitution, as it's designed, lays out the idea that government's intent in the American context is to make sure to be there when the market fails. What is market failure? Market failure is an inordinate number of people unemployed. Market failure is homelessness. Market failure is dirty water. Market failure is dirty air, and so on and so on. That's market failure. Government's job is to curb market failure. It can do that in either one or two or both ways. Either by regulation, saying, hey, don't do that, or if you do that, we will fine you, or depending on what it is, jail you, or do that, and here we will give you a subsidy to do it, and here's spending money to get you to do it. It's either one or the other, or some combination of both. Well, of late, we have not had that come to Jesus conversation about the need to make absolutely certain that women are safe. Women are out there, they're getting stronger, they're working out. You have women now who are bodybuilders, and they've established a new set of beauty. It is now expected for a woman to have muscle, whereas 25 years ago, women were expected to be skinny. Remember that? Not anymore. A woman is expected to have a tush like a black woman. And I can remember back then that it was a different idea. Well, white guys like skinny women without butts and all that sort of thing. But it turned out that back then, white guys, in an increasing number of them, but they hit it, liked women who had butts, including black women. So as American society grew in population, this is one thing that people don't seem to either realize or they forget. There's no such thing as replacing. No. What's happened in American society is American society has grown in number. When I was born, August 4th of 1962, there were 180 million Americans. Now, there are roughly 340 million Americans, okay? That's growth. And as we've grown, we've had more different types of people by background and ethnicity than ever before. So we're adding, the diversity has been additive. So when someone says, hey, they're replacing us, they're not, there's no replacing going on. No. And someone who says that doesn't study society. They have glommed on to some argument that comforts them with the idea that, oh, as a white guy, the lot is worse for them, and it's not. Okay? It's not. For white men who've chosen, say, to marry black women or Indian women like the vice president and so on, life is better. Their freedoms are, like their black male counterparts, wider and more varied than ever before. And so the focus should be on making sure that we take care of the family unit. The family unit so that we promote procreation. I'm not saying that I'm not addressing the other. I'm not addressing anything to establish the other. I'm simply saying that we have to make sure, and this is where I do agree with Elon Musk, we have to make sure and I believe this is a conservative idea, and I think the other way is liberal, we have to make absolutely certain that the population is continuing to grow. All right? I'm not saying that women don't have the right to choose, and women do have the right to choose. They should have it. As a matter of safety, as a matter of health, that should be automatic. A woman's body should be hers to control. Period. End of story as far as I'm concerned. I also believe that is a truly conservative idea because it fits with the actual function of a woman. A woman's body needs sustenance. She gives it sustenance. She has to have control of it. The control should be 100%. It shouldn't stop at a certain point. So, there are those who would want to stop that, and of late, they've won out. They don't like the idea of the type of abortion that leads to the death of a kid inside the womb. I understand. That is awful, okay? Absolutely awful. And that's why we need to have a better system of social aid that's available to a woman that makes it less likely that the woman will be in a position where they would have to get an abortion to begin with. You know, type of contraceptive, okay? Contraceptives for women. We don't talk about that. We have to use technology to solve these problems rather than the don't you do, don't do, oh, you're bad, and then harming people, okay? That has to do with our concern about women and the fact that we need to be more concerned about women than robots. Right now, it seems like we're really more concerned about robots than women, and we're not asking the question, how can robots improve life for women? And I think that should be the main question moving forward. I think that should be the question at CES Las Vegas. Everybody should say, hey, this is great technology, but how does it help a woman's life? Are you employing women to create these? Are you employing women to interact with robots and see how they respond to a woman's needs? This is what's on my mind, okay? Because the signal that I get now is that, hey, these guys want rather interact with the robot than a woman. Every time I turn around, it's a guy talking to a robot or fighting a robot. Okay, what's up with that? I don't get it. Who are the women out there that are programming robots? Who are the women out there creating robots? Those are the questions we need to ask. Anyway, I'd like to know your thoughts about this because I think really it's important to have this ongoing conversation that leads to better policy, that leads to effective social programs, and that leads to better technology too. And I think that should be, the idea is that should be the focus, that the technology should really truly improve our lives, not just for a certain segment of people, not just in certain areas of life and industry, but more comprehensively. And Elon Musk is right. We need to prep our society for getting off this rock and finding another one and building technologies of a extremely advanced nature that allow us, for example, to be in vessels that sustain tremendously high degrees of heat and cool while maintaining the environment inside as if nothing outside of it is going on. I mean, like something that can land on Venus. You know, it's a thought. Why not? land on Venus, then take off, and then come back to Earth. Yeah. Maybe that could be a 2-segment. It flies over Venus, there's a segment that comes off, then it goes down, then comes back to that segment, attaches onto it, and goes out. Something like that. That might be the better way. Anyway, and all of this should be driven with a belief in the Lord, with a reminder that we all have a place we came from. Literally, I remember when I was born. But how do you? That fact guides me every single day of my life. I am intensely aware of the fact that I have an origin place. I remember when I was born. I remember my fear coming out. I didn't know what the heck was going on. I'll never forget that as long as I live. Do you remember being born? All right. And I promise you, I'll come back and I'll talk about more NFL football and stadiums very, very soon, like later today. See you later. Merry Christmas, everybody, and Happy New Year. But I'll have a lot more to say before then, too. All right, see ya. And again, let me know what you think about what I'm saying here. Let me know your thoughts if you want to submit a video. I really believe this is an important conversation to have. All right, thank you. And again, Merry Christmas. And Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Kwanzaa, and Happy Holidays.